Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of our Let's Play of Crusader Kings 2 Irish Spring. This is our tutorial series where I, very long-windedly, am going about the business of explaining pretty much everything in the game. So, yeah, buckle up. I am a little bit verbose, but doing my best to try to cover everything that I can think of that is important for a beginner or really anybody to know. So far we've covered council, laws. Now we're going to talk about technology. So technology is pretty important in the game, but there's not a lot that goes into it. The way that you accrue technology points is, there are a few different ways, but the main way that you accrue technology points is through your learning stat of your ruler. So if we look here, our ruler has an 8 learning, and our kingdom itself has a 22 learning. Higher the learning, the more you are going to accrue. So you can see there's 3 different categories. We have military advances, economy advances, and culture advances. Now the further you start in the game, the higher your base tech that you start at is going to be. You know, if you start out in the 700s at the earliest start, a lot of this stuff is not even going to be up to rank 1. However, starting as we are in 1066, as you can see, we have a lot of things that are already rank 3, and if they're not, they're very, very close. Now, if you start as a count, it's a little bit different. If you start as a count, you do not get technology every month. Nothing. Nil. Nada. Zip. The only way that you can get technology bumps as a count is through the other means that I talked about. You can accrue military tech through random events and also through fighting battles. Economy tech you can get through random events. Culture tech you can get through random events. And also all 3 of these you can get from stealing tech with your spy master. However, something magical happens when you hit the Duke level. Don't ask me what. But once you hit the Duke level, you will start to get monthly technology increases, as you can see. Every month for military we get 0.68, economy we get 0.78, and culture we get 0.4. And we can see why we get what we get. So from attributes plus 0.68, learning plus martial 8 plus 9, tech points per attribute point 0.04. From building 0, so there are some buildings that will increase your ability to gain tech. So economy you get from learning and stewardship, and culture you get from learning and diplomacy. Alright, now let's talk about the various types of tech. So, for military, it's all about, your soldiers. And so what this is going to do is it's going to give you bonuses the more ranks you go up. So, you see right now we have rank 2 infantry, almost rank 3. So right now, because we are rank 2 light infantry, we have plus 15% to infantry attack, plus 15% to defense, plus 15% to archer attack, plus 15% to archer defense. And as you would expect, as we go up, it increases. Alright, heavy infantry. It's going to buff your heavy infantry and your pikemen. Cavalry buffs your light cav, heavy cav, horse archers, camels, war elephants, horse archers, camel cavalry, and war elephants. So in Ireland, for us, that's just going to be light cav and heavy cav. Siege equipment. This is going to affect the speed at which you siege down holdings, and also the speed at which your holdings are sieged down. Shipbuilding is going to affect your capacity not only to make ships, but it's going to add on a percentage of ships for each rank that you have. And military organization is one that's probably the most important of all. What it's going to do is it's going to increase the morale of your armies. Now, when you're fighting, your army will take not only troop losses, but will also take morale damage. And as your army takes morale damage, that is how is determined when your army runs away, when it runs out of morale. So, your army goes down to 0 morale first before the other army, then your army has lost that battle and will do what's called a shattered retreat, which we will talk about later. So, military organization 3, we would get plus 20% morale. We would get global supply limit of plus 40%. So, you can't just get a huge stack of armies and just start moving it around willy-nilly. Different types of Landscape and terrain will affect how much supply limit, how much supply weight you can put on that that county. Higher rank of military organization is going to help you with ferrying around larger stacks of units together. And also we get this thing called retinue. Now retinue is basically your ruler's own personal army. It's like a standing army that always is around. Very, very useful, very, very handy. But you don't really start getting into retinues until you have a few holdings. We're not going to have a retinue right now because we're just too small. And we'll see a retinue tab when we go to our military button here just in a moment. Economy advances. We have advances related to castle infrastructure. So what this will do as we go up is it will bump the tax that we get from castles, and it will also unlock buildings related to castles. So barracks and training ground will both unlock. Those are buildings that are very useful for, they give us extra soldiers. Town infrastructure will bump the tax from cities and will give us some unlocked buildings for towns. Church infrastructure boosts your temple tax and gives you some churchy type buildings. Improved keeps will just unlock some buildings. Trade practices, this all ties into your ports. If you have any trade posts, you will derive profit from those, and you will, as you go up in trade practices, you'll get more benefit from those. But as a new player, you probably won't be dealing very much with trade practices. And then construction is exactly what you think it would be. As you level up in construction, things cost less and take less time to build. So as a new player, the ones that you really need to be concerned with are probably going to be castle infrastructure and town infrastructure. Those are going to be the two that you're going to want to do. Now, as you level these things up, though, something to keep in mind is you do have a penalty. So let's just say that you decided you were going to sink every single one of your points into castle infrastructure. What would eventually happen here is these would get so far behind, and this one would be so far ahead that, like right now, you can see our cost would be 438 points, but, you know, as you go up, it's going to cost more and more and more points. So, like, let's say you had castle infrastructure 5 and everything else was at 3. This is going to cost so much more than these because you're going to be ahead of time. You're going to have an ahead of time penalty, which you can see we actually do have an ahead penalty of plus 20%. Yeah, it's going to cost you so much that it's actually better to put points in the other things. Generally, what ends up happening to me is I might have 1 or 2 categories like military organization or legalism that might be a rank or 2 ahead of everything else, but everything else kind of fills in right behind it. You're not going to have anything that's just going to not get filled in. You will eventually fill in everything because it's cost effective to do so. Culture advances. These are usually, or most of these are going to involve how people see you as a ruler. So noble customs is going to increase the opinion that your feudal vassals will have of you. What that means is, for us as a duke, this is going to improve the opinion that like our counts will have of us. So because we have noble customs 3, that means that this count right here, Earl Ragnvald, the Norwegian man, he has a plus 9 to opinion because we have noble customs rank 3. Popular customs will increase the opinion in the same way, but this is for the mayor. So we have a city, I'm sure, if we click here, we can see the holdings, and we have the city of Lumnik or Limerick. And there should be a, Mayor Ruman of Lumnik, or I think it's Limerick is what it is. But anyways, and you can see if we look here at his opinion, we have a plus 9 from technology. So that is directly related to this plus 9 from popular customs. Religious customs, you probably already guessed it, that revolves around the bishops. Majesty, what this does is every month, or actually just all the time really, but you will gain an increased amount of piety and prestige, and you will also knock years off your short reign penalties. So majesty actually is not terrible. Tolerance, this is not only dealing with tolerance for different cultures and different religions, but also this is how you unlock those higher tiers of status for females. So pretty important if you desire a kingdom where females inherit on equal standing as men. And then legalism, which is in some ways the most important of all. Legalism unlocks additional law options. So the further you go into legalism, you start to unlock, I don't know if I'd call it more powerful administration types, but you unlock more late game and complex things, such as you can see Legalism 4 would unlock some more decisions. Legalism 5, we unlock centralized, we unlock some further focuses for those taxes that we talked about earlier, where they either give you gold or soldiers. And then 6 would get the heavy focuses, 7 more decisions, and then 8 more decisions as well. So you are probably seeing this here little button here. It's map mode relative spread. So we can look at this and we can see it says dark blue is the lowest and white is the highest level of advancement currently in the world. So we can see where light infantry tech is high and where it's low. So as you can see here, the tech is lower in these areas, and these areas are traditionally areas that were held by either pagan units or tribal people. And here we have some of the African Muslim countries, and over here we have the Indian subcontinent. So, okay, that's tech, and as I said, it went a little bit quicker than everything else. It's pretty straightforward. Military. Oh, and this button, this right here, this tells you your trade post limit, but as a new player, I would not fiddle with this. I would not worry about it. Military. Okay, so your military, this is the number of soldiers that you can use at any one time. So as you can imagine, it's very important because you can't take over other things without soldiers. You're going to see we have 3 tabs here, but it's by default always going to default to the middle tab, Army Levies. So we can see right now, Army Levies, we have 0. What that means, that doesn't mean that we have no soldiers. We have plenty of soldiers, but what it means is these are how many soldiers that we currently are using. Currently have what the game calls raised. And this would tell me how much money it's going to be paid, because you have to pay for your soldiers. You pay maintenance fee. You see here, you pay maintenance for levies from your own holdings. So this right here, from domain, those are your holdings. These are your soldiers that you can raise. Now, you can raise these, you just have to pay for them. You do not have to pay for your soldiers from your vassals. However, the longer that you use them, the more pissed off your vassals are going to be about you tying up their soldiers, because they have to pay for those soldiers. Let's go back to the retinues tab. Okay, so as I said, a retinue is like a standing army that you can have as a ruler. It says your retinue is your personal, professional, and standing army ready to do as you order at all times. Unlike army levies, retinues are always on the map and reinforced slowly. The maximum number of retinue regiments you can field depends on your military organization technology and the size of all your levies in the realm. So, long story short, higher military organization, more counties, more levies, you're going to have a bigger retinue cap. So if we look right now, you can see there are different types. Light infantry, pikemen. These are the different unit types. Current retinue cap usage is 0. We can see where we're getting our retinue points. We have 18 from our realm, 6 holdings, 3 cap per holding. So 6 times 3 is 18. Then we have from buildings, we have 20. And then from technology, plus 427.3%. That sounds like a lot, right? Well, we only have 200 cap. And there is nothing that you can purchase for 200 cap. Now, I think the cheapest one is maybe 550. Yeah, this skirmish retinue, which has 200 archers, and 500 heavy infantry. And so it would give you 250 soldiers for 550 points. It would cost you 77 gold to start, but you only have to pay that gold one time. And then every month you have to pay 0.13 gold. And also as it reinforces up to max, it's going to cost you money too, kind of like a recruitment fee, I guess. These buttons in the middle, they control how much your retinue reinforces, how quickly. So right now and by default, it is set to reinforce at maximum speed. So as you can see, you're going to pay the full reinforce cost, and 2.5% of the retinue will reinforce per month. So say you had a retinue of, 100 troops. That means every month you would only get like 3 troops back. So it can be kind of slow. This half speed means you get them back half as fast, but you only have to pay half as much. And then if you just, for some reason, don't want your retinues to reinforce, maybe like you're flat broke and you don't want to go negative on money, you can do this. But generally, you're probably always going to have your retinues set to this whenever you get retinues. So, yeah, and as I said, there are different kinds of retinues. You can't just say, okay, I want 100 light infantry. It's not like going to the supermarket. Instead, you have to buy them in packages here. So, being that we're Irish, we have certain retinues that are available to us. It's kind of a neat thing. Some of the retinues are available regardless of where you are in the world. So like shock, defense, cavalry, skirmish, light skirmish. These are retinues that are fairly common to the world in general, and they're all going to cost the same. However, being Irish opens us up to a special retinue called a gallows glass retinue, and it is 200 troops of heavy infantry. Its retinue cap usage is 600, monthly cost of 0.15. So this is Irish only, if I remember correctly, or maybe Wales or somebody else gets it too. And there are some specialized retinues depending on where you are in the world. It's pretty neat. Okay. So, but just a word of advice, as a beginner, generally what you want to do for your first retinue or 2 or 3 is you want to go for the most troops for the least amount of cap. So you can see this costs 700 cap and you only get 250 troops. So you're basically paying, 3 cap. You're paying 3 points for each troop. Here we have a defense retinue, 600 cap for 300, so that's a little bit more equitable. Here we have 900 for 250. We have 550 for 250, so we're getting closer. And then here we have what's basically the golden standard of retinues for your first few retinues is the light skirmish retinue, 580 cap for 550 soldiers. So basically it's almost a 1-to-1 cost. So I would recommend, as a new player, once you finally get some retinues, I would recommend going with light skirmish for the first 1 or 2, even 3 retinues. And then after that, once you get more retinue, if you do, you can start to look at balance, because you do want to have balance within your armies. You don't just want to have a ton of light infantry and archers, because then you're going to get destroyed by heavy infantry and other unit types. So, okay, so we looked at that. We've got army levies here, so let's take a look at that. You can see we have it's 3 different columns here. So if I hover over it, it says raised, unraised, and max total. So this first number is 0 because I have 0 levies raised right now. If I click this button, raise personal levies, it will raise all of my own personal levies from my domain. And now you can see I have 1100 raised, 0 unraised, and my max total is 1104. If I want to dismiss them, I just click and drag over, click this red button, disband unit. Boom. Let's go back to the military tab. Or conversely, you can just do that as well. Now we can see with our levies raised, it's going to cost us 4 gold a month. So how much money do we make a month right now? Oh, 2.55. So what that means is next month, if these levies were raised, we would actually be in a deficit of about 1.5 gold. From vassals, we can get 323 troops. Now, the amount of troops that you get from your vassals is dependent upon the laws, but also dependent on how much they like you. If they like you a lot, they will give you more troops. If they like you... That is really loud. Why is this so loud? Jesus. I hope I'm not... I hope I wasn't blasting you guys out there. If they like you less, they're going to give you less troops. And, as you can see here, this bishop, Kolob, the bishop of Sil-Delua, he's giving us nothing. He could provide at most 231 troops. Of this, you are able to raise 0% due to Bishop Kolob of Sil-Delua is being loyal to the Pope Alexander II. And he owns 430 troops total. So, out of the 430, we could get up to 230. However, he's giving us nothing because he has a higher opinion of the Pope at this point. We can see Earl Ragnvald could provide at most 612 troops, which we can see here. Of this, you're able to raise 40%, 245, due to Crown law setting the minimum to 40%. So there you go, law. Earl Ragnvald owns 749 troops in total. So we can see the different kinds of troops he has there. He has light infantry, heavy infantry, pikemen, cav, archers, and some galleys. Then there's some buttons here. Raise liege levy. So if we click that, that raises his levy. If we click this, it dismisses it. If we click that, we get his boats. Now if we want to dismiss the boats, we've actually got to go over here and disband the unit. Okay. And then we can see our mayor is giving us 330 troops. So, okay. Fleet levies. Oh, getting too far ahead of myself. Okay. There's a third row here, hired. You can pay money in this game to hire mercenary troops, which we will see in this tab, mercenaries, very, very soon. And when you hire them, this will show you how many troops you have hired. You also have the ability to click this button to dismiss the hired armies, and it will tell you how much they're costing you per month. Now, mercenaries can be a very, very powerful tool. However, they're also, excuse me, very, very expensive. Third tab is fleet levies. Now, fleet levies, as you would expect, are boats. Boats are important because you can't get everywhere that you want to go on foot. As you can see, we will be able to get pretty much anywhere here on foot. But say we wanted to invade Brittany here, we would have to hop on boats and go down here. Each boat can hold a maximum of 100 levies. So as you can see from our domain, we could raise 16 boats. Now if we raise these 16 boats, you can see, oh my goodness, it costs 7.2 gold a month to raise those boats. So boats are pretty damn expensive, guys. So moral of the story, I guess, is when you raise your boats, don't forget to disband them when you're not using them. All right. So, and we could also get 21 boats from our vassals as well. So we have our raise personal fleet, dismiss personal fleet. We have this button, which is actually, this would be to, and you got it here too. This would be if we are tribal or nomadic. When you have tribal or nomadic vassals, you actually do not raise their levies like you do for a normal vassal, because the vassal-lord relationship is a bit different. It's more of a gathering of equals is how it's viewed, so they can actually decline to come to war if they don't like you. But we're not doing a tribal, and I don't advise you to try out a tribal or nomadic ruler as your first ruler anyways. Okay, so raise vassal fleets, dismiss realm fleets, and you can also, there are some retinues, or I'm sorry, are some mercenary companies that do have boats. So, okay, let's go down here to vassals. So we've already kind of looked at this. These are how many vassals we have under us. So we have a count that's under us. Then we have in our county that we hold a bishop and a mayor. And we can see how they feel about us. We can see how many troops they have, how many they're giving us. And then our next tab is the mercenaries tab. And we can see all of the different military units in the game that are available to be hired. We can see how much it costs up front. You have to pay two things when you hire a mercenary unit. You have to pay an upfront deposit fee, which you don't get back, so I guess it's not really a deposit, just an upfront fee to procure their services. So if we wanted this white company here, led by Yaldwolf, we'd have to pay 450 gold up front, and then there's a monthly cost of 3240. Now, this cost is directly related to how big the mercenary company is. So if he takes a bunch of losses here, right now he has 4,500 troops, which is a pretty good amount. If for some reason he loses down to say 1,000 troops, you're only going to be paying about a third of this. However, this is a sunk cost. You never get this money back. So and every single mercenary unit in the game is going to have some sort of upfront cost. Even holy orders normally will too, with some exceptions. But general rule of thumb is that the bigger the mercenary unit, the more it's going to cost up front, and the more it's going to cost you per month. Now, something that you'll want to keep in mind is that different mercenary companies have different strengths. So the white company here has a really good amount of heavy infantry, almost 3,000 units of heavy infantry. So if your army was lacking in heavy infantry, these guys might be a pretty good choice for you. Whereas we have Hans here, the Great Company, who has no light infantry and is almost all heavy infantry. So, even more so. And you can see his monthly cost is even higher. And that's because his units are a little bit more specialized. He loses some light infantry, but picks up a ton of heavy infantry and even more knights. So this guy is like a real badass, And then we've got the Company of St. George, which is actually cheaper per month than the other two. And the reason for that is because it has less heavy infantry, less heavy cavalry. It does have more archers, and it has actually has less light infantry than the White Company. But all right, so as we go down, they each have a name, they each have a leader, and they each have a cost and a monthly cost and a different amount of troops. Goes all the way down to 150 is going to be the cheapest mercenary band that there is. Well, these that cost 100 here, you can see those are ships. Cogs, galleys, cogs. Something worth noting, if you start earlier in the game, there may not be any mercenary companies that will allow you to hire ships. Alright, so let's just take a look here and see what you could expect from a mercenary order that only costs 150 gold. So it's still going to cost about 10 gold a month. You get about 100 or 1,500 troops, and you're going to get a spread of just different, different kinds of troops here. So as a beginner, you're probably going to be spending, if you do hire mercenaries, these are probably going to be the guys that you're going to be hiring. And yeah, but I would advise you generally want to try to get by without hiring mercenaries because of this upfront cost. It kind of stinks. And then you have holy orders, which there are 0 Catholic holy orders at this point in the game. And that's because the Crusades have not really kicked off in earnest yet at this time period. It's random. It's a random event as to when the Pope starts decreeing that we need to have these Crusader orders. But once that call goes out, you'll start to see, the Teutonic Knights and Knights of St. John and people like that are going to start springing up. And they function just like mercenaries, except for instead of costing gold to hire, they cost piety to hire. And then they do have a gold monthly fee. Unlike mercenaries who will attack anybody as long as the gold spends, holy orders will only attack infidels. So they'll only attack heretics and people of other religions. This is something important to keep in mind. As a beginning player, you probably won't be doing a whole lot with holy orders. But just keep in mind that is an option that will be available to you at some point in the game. Let's move on to Intrigue. So Intrigue. These are the skullduggerous plots that you can do against other people, and that can be done against you. So there are a few different sections on this page. It looks pretty bare right now because, well, the game's just started and nobody has started trying to knife each other yet. But even at this stage of the game, we should still have some plots that we could choose to try to start. If we click on that, we can see we've got one plot up here to revoke the county of Ermunane, and we can see it is against this person, Ragnvald of Ermunane, and we can even see success condition is holder King Murchad of Mumu. So we can also see by hovering over it, initial plot power 150%, possible plot power 150%. So the way that these plots work, it's not like you click on this and it automatically happens. You click on it, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on it. We click on it, right? So now this is our plot. Revoke the county of Ermunane. This is our target. Now, you have this little plus button here. You can see it says backers. The way that you make a plot succeed is by increasing this plot power number. The higher the percentage, the more likely it is that the random event, because all of these happen randomly, the more likely it will be that the random number generator lands on this plot being able to happen. Now, and we can even see, like right here under decisions, we can see revoke the county of Ermunane. Now, this one's a little bit different because it isn't random like some of the other plots. I know I just said that they are random, but this one is not random. We can see, what do we need to send this letter? Because this is how you do this one. Now, if it's a plot to kill somebody, you're not going to send them a letter. It's not like you're going to send them a letter and say, hey, I'm going to kill you. It just will happen randomly. But for revoking the county, it's a little different. It says plot power at least 80%. Well, we've got that. We've got that, right? So why can't I click this? Why isn't it gold? Well, plot backers at least one. So we need at least one person within our kingdom to back the plot. So if we want to find somebody to back the plot, we click on this little plus button. It says invite potentially useful characters to your plot. Hit the plus button, it brings up potential plotters, of which there are two. My bishop and my mayor. And they won't back the plot. That's what that little thumbs down means. Means they will not back our plot. The little percentage here is the plot power number. So if they were to back our plot, let's say that Rumen here says, okay, I'll back your plot. He will be sent basically a missive, a letter that will say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Do I have your support? And he will send us back a missive in a few days that will say, you know, something like, great plan, man. I back your plot. Then his little picture will go here, and the plot power will go up to 175. And then we would be able to click this button. Unfortunately, we can't. But you can hover over the thumb and see why. So we can see he thinks of us, 21, Earl Ragnvald, -2. So he likes us more, so why won't he join the plot? Well, even though he likes Earl Ragnvald -2, it's still enough to get a single plus. And then he has what's called a base reluctance. So base reluctance just means kind of like the whole hand-wringing, I don't know, you know. You can basically consider it kind of like the goodness that exists within most people to not do dastardly things, which is affected directly by these traits over here that we haven't even talked about yet. So him, same exact thing. Same exact thing. Base reluctance is what is holding him back from this. So now, if for some reason you cannot succeed in this plot, which we cannot right now, you can always just click X to cancel it. Pew! And now it's gone. And we could choose a different plot. So all these other plots are that we can click on. There are some here to revoke things, but we can't click on them. Are to kill people. So we can see right now none of these are. You can tell if somebody's going to back your plot because the initial plot power and possible plot power will be a different number. And right now they're all the same. And that's because those two guys, my two vassals, don't really want to back any of these plots. So, alright, so that is this part. Now, you can see here this rectangle here, back plots. If you are backing any plots of other people, because you may get asked at different times to back plots of other people. And if you're backing any plots, you can see what plots you're backing. And then decisions are not only for execution of certain plots, but also just there are certain decisions that you can do based on, where you live, your culture, your religion, your government style. So we can see here there are some decisions that show up that we can do and some that we can't do. One of the decisions at the very top here, it says found a new kingdom. You can see that it is white, so that means we cannot do it. It would cost 300 gold. Why can't we do it? Well, you have to have prestige of at least 1,000. So this is our prestige. It's at 30. You also have to have one of these must be true. Realm size at least 35. So this is our realm size right now, 6. Or hold 3 duchy titles, which we hold 1. And you must have personal wealth of at least 300 gold. So basically in Crusader Kings 2, there are pre-existing kingdom level titles, like King of England, King of Ireland, King of Scotland, King of Brittany, King of France. But you can also form your own kingdom if you'd like. You just have to have a realm size of 35 holdings, 3 duchy titles, or 35 realm size or 3 duchy titles. You have to have prestige of 1,000, personal wealth of 300. It's really not that hard to get to. Other decisions. Promote commander. Promote commander would basically, what it does is it randomly generates a person into your court of people that you have that is leaning more towards the military side of things. And it costs 10 prestige and 6 gold. And you can see it says a soldier named Phelan appears at the court of King Murchad of Mumu. Now, as you grow bigger, the prestige cost will stay the same. The gold cost will increase exponentially. Invite a holy man to court. What this will do is the same thing as commander. However, it will invite somebody who leans more towards learning. And this will always cost 5 piety. Always. Invite noble to court. This will invite a promising nobleman to court to aid with matters of administration. So these are people who can kind of lean any which way, but I think they tend more towards stewardship and diplomacy. And this will cost 6.12 gold. And this, just like commander, this gold fee will increase exponentially with your size. Present debutante is a way for you to introduce women into your realm. And they don't really have any sort of leaning. They just show up. And this costs 6.12 gold as well. And you can see a courtier named Scathatch. Great name, Scathatch. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Appears at the court of King Murchad of Mumu. Another thing you can do is you can hold a feast. Now, feasts are good, but they do cost you a lot of money, and you have to have a certain amount of prestige before you can do it. What a feast does is basically it gives you an additional amount of monthly prestige, and there are also random events that can happen at your feasts, both good and bad. But feasts are generally what you do when you want to raise your prestige up. However, like I said, they do cost 25 gold. It's quite a bit of money, especially when you only make 2.5 per month. So basically, if we have a feast, that's our whole year's gold gone. You can do feasts once every 2 years. A summer fair is another thing that you can do to kind of get random events and gain prestige. Also costs 25 gold. Something you can do early in the game, or really just any time in the game, if you need money and you are from a Christian kingdom, is you can borrow 300 gold from Jewish moneylenders. You can only do this one time, just once, and when you do it, you get an opinion debuff to all religious figures. So bishops, the Pope, it's like -10 or -15, and It basically, when you borrow 300, you have to pay back 350. So until you pay back that 350, you have a debuff that says owes money to Jewish moneylenders. So, but this can be a really good way to get your kingdom kick-started early on, and to like fund a round of mercenaries for a war. And we might do that eventually. Buy an indulgence for my sins. If you're familiar with the history of the Catholic Church, an indulgence was where you would pay money to a church official to be pardoned for a sin. So in this case, you are buying it directly from the Pope, and it usually costs a good amount of money. Now, the first fee there, personal wealth of at least 30.6, that directly pertains to the size of your kingdom. So the bigger the kingdom, the more that first fee is going to be. The second fee, 25 gold, I guess you could kind of think of that like a filing fee. It's always going to be 25 gold. And you can't do it if you're a heretic. Expel the Jewry. What this does is basically this kicks all Jewish people out of your kingdom. You will lose prestige, but you gain gold for it. All Jewish characters will be banished from the realm, and you will lose tax modifier and diplomacy. Now, this is a way that you can get rid of this debuff from this, but I don't recommend expelling the Jewry at all. Yeah. I don't recommend it. And there will be other decisions that can and will pop up as you play the game. So, a lot of these are pretty fun. Okay, then last thing on the Intrigue thing is threats, prisoners, and known plots. Now, threats are basically threats to your rule. So, threats can be either people who have claims on your titles outside of your kingdom, that maybe they're planning on invading you. Threats can also be people within your kingdom who are desiring your titles, and maybe they're factioning against you. So this is a pretty good idea to kind of keep an eye on this, but not trip out too much. There'll be a percentage here, and the closer that threat level gets to 100%, what that means is like that's a percentage of your personal troops. So if it says like a 100% threat level, that means that they have just as many troops as you do, 1-for-1. Prisoners, as you go to war, you will sometimes capture prisoners. And with this tab, you can see, their name, how long they've been in prison, what their title is, opinion, and you'll have actions that you can take. So 3 of the most common actions that you will see will be release from prison. So you just let them go, and you get an opinion bonus to that character, but not to anybody else. Used to be you could release one prisoner, and everybody would be like, wow, you're so merciful. And everybody would give you like a +5 or +10 to opinion, but they changed that. Kind of a bummer. Anyways, so yeah, you can release prisoners. You can also ransom prisoners. And what that means is either you will ask their liege, or if they do not have a liege, if they have a title themselves, they will try to pay for their ransom out of their own pockets. The higher the rank, the more ransom you can get. So like, regular just Joe Schmo who's somewhat important but doesn't really have a title and isn't really a kid of a noble, you might be able to get 10 gold for. Working all the way up to, say, like a duke. If you ransom a duke, it's going to be like 145 gold. So it can be pretty good, pretty lucrative. And then you can execute. You can execute people that are in your prison. However, you have to be careful about this. You can't just execute anybody that lands in your prison. If they are unimportant or of a different religion, you can execute them with only a cost of like piety, or sometimes nobody will even care because they're inconsequential. However, if it's somebody who is Christian, Catholic, and you execute them, you're going to end up probably incurring an opinion penalty because it's viewed as a tyrannical action. So other things that you might be able to do with different people is sometimes you, instead of ransoming people, you can banish them. And you'll see this typically with like whenever an adventurer who has a title on your land but doesn't live in your land decides that he wants to attack you, sometimes they will raise an army on their own and attack you. And then when you finish that war and you beat them, you will imprison them, and you will have the option to release them, banish them, or execute them. And generally speaking, it's pretty good to banish them because you will seize the rest of the gold that they had raised for that military campaign. Okay, so that's prisoners. And then known plots. This is where, remember we talked about this plot thing here? You're not the only person who can plot. Everybody in the game can plot. And the bigger your kingdom, the more plots are going to show up. So what you can do here is you will find out about plots organically, and also your spy master will tell you about plots as well. So this tab will tell you about the plots that you currently know of within your kingdom, or targeting people within your kingdom, or people within your kingdom who are targeting people outside of your kingdom. So basically any plot that involves your kingdom in some way, form, or fashion. You'll be able to see the name of the person who is plotting, the plot that they're doing, who it's targeting, and the people that are backing the plot. So, pretty good screen to keep an eye on, because generally you kind of want to keep an eye on this, because if you let people plot in your kingdom unchecked, there can be some unforeseen ramifications with people getting a little too powerful, maybe. Because the name of the game is Crusader Kings 2, and everybody wants to become more powerful, so they're going to be constantly plotting on each other and always trying to pull one over. So yeah, I would keep an eye on this. I mean, when you're small like we're going to be, the chances are we're not going to be seeing many plots. But like, say if we were the King of Ireland, we would be seeing a great deal more plots. And if we were the Emperor of Britannia, then we would be seeing a freak ton of plots. So yeah. Alright, well, we're going to put a cut in there. This video's ran really long. And in our next video, we're going to cover factions, which we've already kind of hit on. Religion, which should go pretty quickly. And then we're going to start diving into the rest of this stuff. So hopefully by video, this is video number 3. So hopefully by the end of video number 4 or video number 5, we can actually start getting into a little bit of gameplay. I do apologize that this is moving at what I would consider a glacial pace, but the game, there's just so much to the game, and I want to make sure that you guys have all of the questions answered before we get started. I think if you have been a diligent student, that once we start playing the game, you will pick up on things a little bit quicker than if you were just tossed in and told to swim. So, thank you guys for joining me. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below the video. Until next time, game on.